I used to think the same thing about speaking in tongues in front of other people until this happened. Years ago, my brother was staying with me for a little while, and he decided to go to a men's prayer meeting at the church that I used to go to. And he was newly saved, or maybe hadn't fully given his life to Christ yet, but he knew about God, he knew the gospel. He went to this prayer meeting. He was in a transitional time in his life, and so he was kind of seeking and asking the Lord to direct him in some things. And so he went to this prayer meeting, and everyone in the prayer meeting at one point started to pray under their breath in tongues. And one man in the prayer meeting may have been speaking louder than the others, I'm not sure. But my brother heard it, and he was amazed by it. Before the prayer meeting ended, all of the men gathered around him and prayed for him about his situation. And he was overwhelmed emotionally. And when he came back home to my house, he was weeping and crying almost to the point that he couldn't breathe. And when he could finally catch his breath, he said, "For the first time tonight, I heard someone speak in tongues, and it was the most beautiful thing that I've ever heard." And he said that in that meeting that the Lord began to speak to him and convict him of all of his sins. And he started to confess all of his sins to me. And he started to share with me what the Lord had spoken to him through that meeting. And after talking to him for a while, I realized that my brother was the one who got the interpretation. But he was so young in the Lord that he didn't know how to say that. That night, my brother had the most amazing encounter with the Lord. I think sometimes we assume that having an interpreter around is more formal than it really is. I think that many times, possibly more than one person is getting the interpretation, but they may not know how to step out in faith and speak it out, or they may not understand that they've gotten the interpretation. In the case with my brother, it led him toward repenting of his sins and meeting the Lord. If you look in the comments of the video that you are referring to, some of those comments look like they could be an interpretation of what I was saying in tongues. Now, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised.